So welcome to this afternoon's session called New York State of Teach/Tech. Did everybody see what we did there with the title? Technology integration and teacher preparation. I'm very excited to have an awesome panel that is from the region, and I'm so just thrilled today. I think many of you have heard me talk in individual conversations, and certainly in the welcome, about how excited I am to see higher ed represented today. As it sounds like everyone agrees, this really is a conversation that starts in pre-K and goes all the way until education, infinity. So thank you to all of our presenters for being here today and for saying yes to our invitations. We really appreciate it. So we're going to start out with, I think we're still waiting on Sarah. Okay, we're going to start out and hear right away from Widdall from SUNY Cortland. Yay!
Good afternoon. Thank you for coming. So to just give you a smidgen of where I've come from, I was a mother of 6, and I decided to go to college when I was 37. And the first time I touched a computer was because I decided to go to the Empire State, which was online learning back in the day. And I had never touched a computer before that, although I had been efficiently trained because most good women would learn to be a secretary, and I had keyboarding skills when I was in high school, back when that was considered the right thing for young ladies to do. However, the skill set that I had, taking care of 6 children, really helped me understand that I needed to understand technology to become more productive in a very fast-paced 16 to 18 credits plus taking care of 6 kids plus working part-time world. So that was my promoter of encouragement to learn how to use technologies. And now I am the childhood education technologist for our School of Education in the elementary and special education areas. So I really enjoy working with educational technologies and understanding the skill set that is needed there. So I have a question for all of you, and this would be a typical beginning of one of my education technology classes. What do you see on the screen? Technology. Thank you. And how many ways can this piece of technology be used? We can write with it, right? We can erase with it. How are the other ways children use it? Measuring it, biting stick, poking a friend. So this is a piece of technology. However, where's my forward button on here? Here?
Oh, it's hidden.
It's hidden.
Oh, technology.
Okay, so we're going to use the keyboard. Okay. That's all right. So the key to this process with my students is for them to understand technology does not mean it's the smartphone in your pocket. It's not just, it's a word that encompasses many, many things. And technology doesn't make you a better writer. If I threw these 40 pencils in front of a child, will the child become a better writer by me putting those pencils there? Absolutely not. This is what the child would look like. So in that concept, that's what I want my students to know right away. It's not about the technology. It is about you learning to teach your core content. I'm a TPAC teacher. To teach that core content, know how to do the instructional strategies that go with it, know how the technology will work to efficiently and effectively help that student learn better and that the learning outcomes will be met. It's not about putting the technology in front of the child. And so I really like, and I do a TPAC session with my students to really make them start thinking about that process and that it's not just about the technology. So when I was asked to do this, they threw out 3 questions, and I thought, well, I'll just go ahead and stick with the questions. It's an easy way to keep the format going. And so one of the challenges, and I've just wrote out some quick notes because we only have about 5 to 7 minutes, and I'm just going to go through these, that one of the challenges that I believe we face, I'm at SUNY Cortland, and we are a large teacher education preparation program. We have about 450 to 500 student teachers every year. And I guess what my name is, edTPA Coordinator. That's fun. So part of that is technology, right? But part of my thought is, and the challenges that we have, and we just went through our CAPE accreditation, and CAPE, even though we try hard, CAPE gave us 2 little slaps on the hands, and one was technology. That the students didn't feel effectively trained to use it in the classroom. That's key. How do I use it to integrate in my classroom? So one of the things that I think is our challenge to try to fix these, and so we're looking how to fix these things, is not enough of our faculty are active in the P12 environment. And if they are not there, or if they do go there, they like to funnel themselves and put themselves in tunnel vision. I'm a secondary teacher and I'm going to stay right here. For us to understand cognitively how our students learn, whether it's with technology or anything, we have to know where they've come from and where they're going. And not enough of our college faculty think that way. And I think that really hurts what we're having in one of our challenges when it comes to technology. They don't really understand how effective technology use can be implemented in their classrooms in the college setting that supports life skills. It's not just about presenting or making the ability to use an iPhone. I cannot tell you how many students I have come to my tech class who don't know how to use Microsoft Word. So it's really about those life skills that can be used across the curriculum. And our core content faculty, our GE faculty, don't sometimes take their role as being technology educators for all of our students. They think I'm teaching the content that I'm great at, but they don't think beyond that. And I think those are some of the challenges that we face, especially in the School of Education. They're lost, they don't think futuristic. They think it's just now. So some of the solutions that we've started and some that we hope to build. One of the things is that in almost all of our pedagogical courses, we have implemented PDS relationships. So these are professional development school relationships, and I know some of my colleagues also have these. So that our teacher candidates work in the school districts 2, 3, 4 semesters before they actually go out student teaching. So that our P12 partners are helping us and helping our students understand what's needed in the field. And I think that's really important. And we've learned to collaborate that way. We've begun to use our master teachers. SUNY Cortland actually is a home base for one of the master teacher programs. And we are really lucky that we can start using our master teachers to help us understand what needs to be done in the P12 field. Higher ed cannot sit in their own silo. They just can't do that. And then we also have special trainings that we've been offering, some money that's been offered for us to help us do professional development that's collaborative with both our partner school teachers and our faculty that are in all core curriculums to actually reinstate problem learning skills, problem solving, teaching, constructivist teaching, stop being the stage on the stage, and and making it just instructivist. So we're working at that. And one of the real things that I'm excited about is we're starting to do a lot of action research. And I heard somebody mention that earlier today, is that we need to do research. And I've been able to publish at least twice with a couple of my P12 partners. Nothing rocket science. We did not invent the ship that flew up, but it was about learning and young children and how the use of technology can support student learning outcomes in an effective and efficient manner. And the final question is, what's the expectation for my pre-service teachers? I like to cut the apron string. I like to make them feel uncomfortable. I want them to problem solve. I don't give them, this is the end of your journey. This is what I'd like to see you do. Now figure out how to do it. And I help them learn those skills. So as Kiersten mentioned earlier, they need to get foundational skills that are transferable. No school district will be the same, but because that happens, they need to feel confident, unafraid that they can make that leap from one platform to another. And they need to believe in the ability of the child. I just helped a school district create a grant, and I helped them create the assessment, and the assessment included that each child in 3rd grade would set their own learning goal for that technology activity. And the teacher said, "Are you sure they're capable of doing something that?" And I said, "Yes, I'm really positive, even if it's a small goal, but they can learn to create bigger goals." So we have to believe in the child. And we need to stop thinking that just thinking about now is enough. And even futuristic thinking isn't enough. Because what we are teaching in the kindergarten classroom will be obsolete when they graduate from high school. So we have to build the skill set, not about the tool. And then don't be afraid to struggle. I want my students to be problem solvers, collaborators, and play, that they understand that play is learning. There's a great article I love to have my students read, and it talks about fun failure. It's okay to fail. Make it fun while you're doing it and figure out the solutions. So I appreciate the time, and that's all I had. I was actually ending, so we're great. So.
Thank you so much, Chris. And I have to say, I've sent a couple of sort of beacons out across SUNY a couple of times, and I feel like Chris is one of the people that has always responded, and yes, I'll have a conversation. And so I'm really grateful for you to be here today from our sister institution. Dr. Bell is one of my partners in crime and longest standing mentors here in EdTech, and I'm so grateful to have you here today and chat with us. And she has a fan club here today. All right, take it away, Karen.
Okay. So, okay, I have to stand in front of the microphone because everybody's so far away. All right. So I will be speaking today about using live simulation as a teaching tool in teacher education, and I will be giving out a shout out to a couple of my students here who you'll see in a video in just a few minutes. So for starters, like, what are types of simulation? What is simulation? And basically there are sort of two types that are being used in teacher education right now, and that's mixed reality, live, computer simulation. Originally we used something called Teach Live, which is developed out of the University of Central Florida, and I'm not at their conference today so that I could be here talking about simulation. So I spoke with many of them yesterday, and they're very excited. This is their 7th annual conference, but they're very excited that I'm here talking about it. So they developed it there. They have a number of different classrooms, and they have a early childhood classroom, middle school, high school, and they are working developmentally to design more learning experiences and environments. They were originally funded by a Gates grant, and part of their Gates grant required that they go commercial. And so Immersion was born, and we've been contracting services from Immersion. I was at a conference back in February, and many people are using live role-playing as a simulation. So that's sort of the other area, whether you're doing it computer-generated or with people who are sitting in as children or other participants, students. But I'm going to talk to you about live simulation in this mixed reality environment. And so the first one is teaching math, science, and technology in the elementary classroom. That's the methods course that I teach. And my students have been required to teach a science lesson. And some of them were required or this semester decided on their own to teach a math lesson on fractions. All right, so what you see there is our little upper elementary class of 5 children, and they actually teach to these children. We also have a variety of programs that are using the adult avatars, and there's a whole host of them. This is just one. We use it in our educational leadership program for difficult conversations. We have used it for parent-teacher conferences, And right now we're engaged in a research project on classroom management. So we've been using the adult avatars, as I said, in our Ed Leadership program, where the candidates take on the role of the principal of the school. And then they are given 5 or 6 different scenarios, difficult conversations. So they have to meet with a disgruntled parent whose child is being bullied. They have to discuss an observation with a teacher who absolutely refuses to sign the observation. So there's lots of different things that we're looking for when the candidates go through the simulation. One of them is de-escalating a difficult conversation where we're looking at body language. So if the avatar is doing this, then we know that they're not de-escalating the situation. And finding common ground where they can problem solve together. In the parent-teacher conferences, this is not an area that we typically teach in our teacher education programs. There's just not room for everything, so we have to give up some things. And what we've used it for typically is to have pre-service teachers or in-service teachers justify their teaching techniques. Why are you using games in the classroom? What's the value of project-based learning? But as I said, I specifically use it in my class for teaching a science lesson. And I'm looking for certain things, right? It's at the very low level. You can ratchet up the level in terms of how the avatars respond to your interactions. But typically this is the first lesson that they're teaching in science or math, right? And so it's a way of practicing. Some of our accreditors said, our cooperating teachers have told us, your students are great at planning, but they need work in implementation. So this is a way for them to practice in a safe, non-threatening environment. They might disagree that it's non-threatening, but we hope it is. So when I do it, I focus on 3 areas: fidelity to the model, and I use a very specific model that has moves. Engagement, that all of the children in the 5-person classroom are engaged, and questioning. What kinds of questions are being asked? Are they open-ended? Are they probing and guiding? Are they closed questions? Are they yes-no questions? So that the students or the candidates can start developing their instructional techniques. So Kate and Natalie, who are sitting over there, thank you for your willingness. I'm just going to show a very short clip.
Good afternoon, students. My name is Miss Kate, and I'm Miss Guido. And today we have a fun experiment prepared. We have 2 pieces of clay, and they both have the same mass, except one is rounded, and then the other one is flat.
So today, we are going to do an experiment where we predict which piece of clay is going to fall to the bottom of this jar of water faster. So
we have 3 different options. I want you guys to listen to the options first, and then we're going to talk about what you guys think will happen first. So do we think that both of these pieces of clay are going to land at the bottom together? Will the round piece fall first, or will the flat piece fall first? Okay, so does anybody think that both pieces are going to land at the bottom at the same time? Okay, Mina, why do you think they're going to land at the bottom at the same time?
Well, you said that they have the same mass, so that means that gravity's going to pull them down the same way. Or so that means that, yeah.
That's a great prediction.
Very smart.
Will, do you have one too?
I was going to say the same thing that Nina said.
Awesome.
Okay, so I just wanted you to get a quick taste of what the environment looks like and what our classroom looks like. Okay, so what we've learned is that students' content knowledge really needs to be bolstered. I think they've found that for themselves. They need to practice their pedagogical skills. Debriefing is really key in any of these activities. And we have a whole method of debriefing and ways for our candidates to be involved, even if they're not the ones in front of the camera. And some of the positive consequences and limitations, I think that I've learned very new things about my candidates just from watching them teach for 5 minutes. You really get a sense of what happens. It's a way for us to prepare teachers and administrators in areas that are typically not taught in our preparation programs. The downside, it's very time consuming and it's very expensive. All right, thank you.
Up next, we have Shauna Bushell, who is an assistant professor of edTech. Let me get this wrong. Okay, at Manhattan College, and we're really lucky to have her here today. Thank you for being here.
As she's getting my program up, you can tell I've been a kindergarten teacher all my life. Who are you? I see a lot of people looking at their laptops, so maybe the conversation's not engaging to you. Tell me, are you faculty? Raise your hand. Faculty, or staff of a college, right? Are you pre-service teachers? Good. Are you in corporate America? That's funny. And if I didn't call you, what are you? Tell me where you are. What are you? Yes.
Director of Technology.
At K-12?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, teachers, K-12 teachers? Okay. So, whoa, my favorite people, I forgot that. Anybody else
K-12 sector.
K-12? Any other category I forgot?
Regional Information Center, Program Coordinators.
Awesome. With the BOCES?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Gentlemen inside, what are you? I haven't heard your hand.
Tech support.
For me? Oh, great. Well, I'm so glad you're here, right? I don't think I need a microphone, but I'll be with one. Listen, I was a kindergarten teacher for 8 years in California, and I was adopted by Microsoft and Cisco. So when I began teaching, I only knew how to integrate technology. 1988. And now I am program director of EdTech at graduate level, and the things that I used in kindergarten in 1988 are still not done in schools. Why is that? I don't know. But what I do know is as program director, all of these people are telling me what to do with EdTech. All of these people have a crosswalk. All of these people have rules and regulations on how I should teach pre-service teachers. I have a level that tells me I should be a college. I have a level that says I should be a school of education. I have a level that says I should be pre-service. One in EdTech, everywhere, and none of them combine well. So I spend all of my day figuring out how my program, which I think is awesome, will fit into all of these boxes they want me to. I think there's a problem with that. I think the problem starts that we don't talk together, and I don't know who all of you are, and you don't influence me. If I am building the curriculum of pre-service, then students should influence me. K-12 should influence me. The tech guy should influence me, right? Because those things that he sees from his purview, I should build into my curriculum. Do you agree?
Yes.
It is too segmented, right? So as I look at this, oh, my voice gets bigger. Okay, so what's the question? I think the question needs to be from all these people who assess me is how are we working together and through each other in order to make a great pre-service teacher that integrates technology? I think that's the question I should be asking. Not what one institution wants me to do or one accessibility wants me to do, right? So I think we heard of 360 assessment? Do you know what that is? It's a corporate kind of thing, right? And so someone assesses you from all the pieces. Who works side by side, under, side. Everyone gives you an evaluation and you get a 360. Wouldn't you love for all your instructors to get a 360? Wouldn't you? Let's give Karen Bell a 360. Because I'm probably sure she would do really well. But there will be we're all good, but there's some things we should work on. And we don't know it till we hear from all sides of the spectrum, right? So this is how I think assessment should work. I think K-12 should be the first people we talk to. Even though I left you out. You see how easy that was, right? I think there should be two higher ed. I think there should be a corporate and another higher ed. So if this is my diagram of how I'm going to have a conversation and be assessed. So K-12 should talk to higher ed. How many times do you talk to the professors at the college near you?
Never.
That's insane. I will fix that for you. Yeah. How many times do those professors come out and talk to you on a regular basis?
Never.
But I'm going to put my teachers in your school. That they get too personal. Don't I pretend they're not there. Yeah. All right. How many times does higher ed talk to corporate? Like how many times does higher ed go over to Dell and go, you know that computer you're making for my teachers ain't working. I need to adapt it. I need to be in that conversation. And that's where he might be able to help me, right? He might say, you know what you need is you need a screen that's 22.8 inches in order to make it work. But I'm not having those conversations. And corporate is not coming to me to ask me what I need, right? And then corporate needs to go to K-12. Google needs to come out and say, this is how Google Chromebooks work. Not an interceder. You need to talk to Google and say, this is working for me, this is not working. And then they need to go back. But what's really missing is even if I get that half of the diagram working, do you know I don't talk to other higher ed? I don't. So if I'm an hour away, I don't go to SUNY New Paltz and go, what are you doing right that I might be able to work together with you with my teachers because we're competitive. And why are we competitive? You know, I'm in Manhattan College. Whoever's going to come to Manhattan College is going to come. Whoever's going to go to the SUNY New Paltz is going to go. So why don't we work together? We're all trying to teach kids. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
So I think we need a 360. I really do. But after we have, how much time do I have? Because I know the clock's coming.
2 minutes.
2 minutes. So after you get all these people together, there needs to be some common language. Because Google doesn't talk like K-12, and K-12 doesn't talk like higher ed, so we need some common language. And I think there's one common language we all know. One word. What do you think it is? I can't hear you? Go ahead. Say, whoever said it. What's the word? Money. Money. That's even better than I thought. I said that should be our common word. Give me some. Yeah. Any other common word? Technology. Okay. This is what I think the common word is. We all understand what our field is. We all understand what the field is, right? So if we all say we're going to talk about the field, be it yours or mine, we're going to talk about the field. So our field of higher ed, our field of corporate, you know, we all work together. And I think field is the word, but we got to change what field means. And in 30 seconds, I'm going to tell you how it's going to change. This is what field means from now on. The first one means we got to facilitate trust. I got to believe and trust what you say, right? The other one is integrating pedagogy. We love to write articles. You know, to be tenured, I have to write 20 articles. Guess who reads them? No one. Zero, because they're an obscure journal, right? So I'm writing about teachers and technology and it's going into a journal that's in a closet somewhere in the library, right? So we have to learn how to integrate those pedagogies into our partners. We also have to be at the same table. So everyone needs to sit down twice a year and go, what's going good, what's going bad, how do we work it together? And we do that a little bit for our assessment, but usually we bring some people over to the campus, we have dinner, we chat, and we leave. We don't really do this. What do you think L's for? We don't really listen. We bring you over. We're like, hey, what's happening at your school? As soon as you start having problems, we go, okay, so what's happening at your school, right? Because we just want to get through the hour, right? I think if we assess in a 360 and we learn to listen and talk about our field partners, then we will naturally get better with digital immersion because it'll be a natural flow that comes from everybody and we will learn what kind of technologies that work best for us all. I'm done.
Up next we have Dr. Devin Duhaney, who is an associate professor of teaching and learning here at SUNY New Paltz and one of my mentors as well. And am I allowed to touch it now? Yeah. Okay. Do you have slides? Not that one. This one? Okay. So we're very lucky to hear from him today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Kiersten. I use this particular quote from Richard Clarke as a way of starting my classes most semesters, especially from the time when I came across that quote. And I'm sure as you're reading it, you are wondering and you're thinking quite a number of things. Before you become too entranced with gorgeous gadgets and mesmerizing video displays, let me remind you that information is not knowledge, knowledge is not wisdom, and wisdom is not foresight. They each grow out together, and they work together. That's the way I try to get students to understand that as we think and talk about technology and how we might integrate technology, we have got to look beyond the gadgets. We've got to start looking beyond the tools and start thinking more seriously about how we're actually going to utilize these stuff to engage our students. You see, I'm editing as I'm talking because everybody else has said what I wanted to say. Okay. And beyond that, I also try to get the students, and it is a challenge to teach a subject such as this at the college level, because things change so rapidly, and the thinking is that all of these students know the technology more than you do. Can I surprise you with something? That's not true. Don't ever think that your students know more about the technology than you do. They probably are learning about it as much as you are learning about it. As a result, I often say to students, don't be afraid to learn from your students. It's good when you ask them to show you how to utilize some of these tools, some of these gadgets. They'll be on cloud 9 by the time you're done. Because I showed Miss, I showed Sir how to use these things, and that makes them very happy. That gets them engaged in what you're doing in the classroom. Now we also need to understand, and this is a piece of it which I think many of us tend to forget, that when we think of technology, we ought to think beyond product, beyond resources. What about technology as process? Not a lot of thought is given to that. And so what I am thinking of here is that as we try to get our students to think of technology as process, I expose them to instructional design. And we know that there's this tension between instructional design and technology use, okay? First and foremost, as was said not long ago, lots of these things that we are seeking to integrate in our classrooms were not developed for the classrooms. And so that is why it's important that business and K-12 as well as higher ed need to get together and discuss a lot of these things, because we are trying to force these things into the classroom in ways that the people who developed a lot of these tools never thought of. Lots of applications are now coming out which we are integrating in our classrooms, which are good, because guess what? Teachers are behind some of them, and they know what happens in classrooms. But again, the word is really money.
Oh, is it?
Okay. They try to get all these tools pushed down on us. One of the questions or statements I usually make to students and when I go to conferences is, whichever school you go to, find the closet and raid the closet. Because you're going to find some closets where they get a lot of tools which teachers know nothing about, and the teachers simply say, all right, you stay there, what I've been doing works, I'll continue doing this. And they have some new tools and new gadgets in the closet which were not even opened. We're finding that too. But beyond the work of Ghane, Dick and Carey, Kemp, Morrison and Ross and so forth, we need to start looking at how instructional design might inform what we do in the classroom. Alison Carr-Chelman has a good book, Instructional Design for Teachers, which really outlines some good principles and practices that teachers can use as we seek to incorporate or integrate technology in the classroom. Actually, she seemed to have drawn quite a bit from one of the fathers of this field, Robert Ghane. And so out of this work of instructional design, we're getting a lot of other things happening these days. And so we're seeing things like all of these frameworks, the TPAC, which we heard mentioned made of earlier on, SAMR model, and I like to look at this because they depict them in so many interesting ways. Like this swimming, diving piece, what about coffee? Okay. And in addition to that, looking also at the PICRAT, what I call PICRAT model, all right, that's another one. Also something growing out of another model that was developed earlier, and Kimmons himself was the one who came up with this matrix. Here's another one which we are getting really familiar with now, Liz Coates' EEE matrix framework, all right? These are all frameworks which we can use to integrate technology. This is the, gosh, I keep forgetting them now. There's so many. This is the TIM model, right? Yes, technology integration matrix with 25 different cells. And so as you think of the different ways in which teachers can slowly utilize technology, how can you shift from just using one thing to exposing your students to the many ways in which they can think of and also approach teaching and learning? That is something we find a challenge in our classrooms, because we've got to slowly start thinking about the shift that we have to be making, that schools aren't about teaching anymore. It's about learning. How do we help to engage our students and get them to learn how to learn so that 3/4 of our job will be finished when we walk into the classroom, because they are learning how to learn. The other thing is that we need to understand that no amount of technology is going to make a poorly planned lesson good. And no amount of technology is going to make a bad teacher good if we don't learn how to integrate the technology to engage students effectively and efficiently. Let me stop there.
And last but not least, we have Katya Widdall, who's the... and Sarah, oh my gosh, so sorry. We have two more, okay. So first we have Katya Widdall, who's the Director of Graduate Education Programs at Marist College, and I want to also say a special thanks because I sent out another beacon to many regional institutions, and you were one of the few that responded, so thank you so much for being here.
Pleasure. Okay, everybody's been talking about the big questions, the big theoretical questions. I'm going to take it down to the very practical. Working at Marist College, got a problem. Unfortunately, the problem is my class. So I'm hoping that maybe you guys can help us out, because I've been working there for 6 years and we haven't been able to figure it out yet. Now, I love my class. It's Education 150, Learning Through Technology. I think we're going to change the name of it to Technology for Education Professionals, because that sounds a little bit better. But what we've got going on right now is they get one course. So whether they're going into the childhood certification or the adolescent certification, any area, they get one course in technology. And so because of this, I try and cram it kind of full. You might have noticed if you looked ahead on this website. We get 28 course sessions, traditional 15-week course, and here's what they get. All of that. All right? So, and I'm not going to read them because I'm not a slide kind of read gal, but there's a lot there. A lot of topics and a lot of tools. Some of the tools are introduced by me. A lot of them are students giving, almost in every class they do a little 15-minute presentation where they show us one of these tools and how it might work for their students. So that's all good, but it's a lot, and we have some issues with this one, and some of the issues have been mentioned here earlier today. It's standalone. We're learning about technology, but we're really not embedding it into any particular content, which is a little bit of an issue because that's what they're really going to be doing with it in the classroom. And they take it when they are, some of them as early as second semester freshmen, which is so far removed from when they're going to be really using it in the classroom, in their student teaching in particular. And then the number of topics and tools in there just makes it so that we're doing the same thing that we complain about with regular standards, which is the mile wide and inch deep, right? We're just kind of skimming the surface and we never really get to, explore. But of course, after all these years, and it changes every semester for me because technology is constantly changing, techniques are changing, but I've never really been able to cut it down for some reason. I'm like, well, I have to do this and I can't take this one out. So it just keeps, basically we do a different topic on almost every class session. So we've looked at solutions. So here are some of the options. The first thing, we're like, all right, well, everybody says, and I go to all the conferences and they say, this is what we're doing at our college. We're gonna put this together with the content courses. All right, great. So how does that work? Well, maybe you can co-teach. So sometimes the EdTech faculty person, which is me, will come in and they'll join in a few sessions of the content. Maybe it's math methods or social studies methods. We'll come in and we'll co-teach in those ones. Well, okay, that's a little bit more authentic for the candidates. It's really embedded in there. However, the content faculty is complaining, I don't have time to do all that ed tech. Same thing as me, right? I've got all these things I got to cover. I don't have time for you to come into my class and do all this stuff, even though I know they need to use the technology. And for me, I'm like kind of shifted to the side a little because then I don't have my own course, and that gets to be a little bit of a problem with faculty. For any of you higher ed people, faculty loads, like, well, where's my 3-4 load going now? Now how does that really work with my, okay. So that was co-teaching. Now, all right, well, maybe then all faculty members need to be ed tech teachers. Wouldn't that be the nice, just in the way that all K through 12 teachers are? I tell them instructional designers and technology teachers. Okay, and they can do that if they're willing to do the training, but then there's still this issue with, there's a lot of topics up here that you might see that are just not going to get into a math methods or a science methods. Like, for example, student privacy of student data, and digital citizenship, and even instructional design, and transmedia materials and cyber ethics, things like that, that they're just, it's not going to fit into what they're doing in their classroom, and they're going to get left behind. And for me, some of those are the most important things. All right, so we moved on from that one. We're looking at it. Here's the next thing. All right, let's just take that ed tech course, and we'll just make it right before student teaching, just in the same way that we have a seminar where they have to sort of get ready for the wonderful edTPA right before student teaching so that they're ready to go. Why don't we put the EdTech course there? Well, that would be great. It would be fresh in their minds. They're going to be using the latest technology. They might even be able to figure out where their placement is because they sort of know a few weeks in advance. And do you have an interactive whiteboard in your room? Do you have a one-to-one program? What are you using so that I can get ready for it? That'd be awesome. But as it stands now with our schedule, we don't have room for that. We don't have room for it right before, so they're doing other things to get ready for their student teaching and their last literacy course and their course for students with special needs, and they're getting ready for the seminars. And we use it kind of as a prereq. Because, for example, in my class, they learned how to use Excel for data-driven instruction, and then they use that for their psychoeducational assessment course, and they use it for their psychological research course. So if they don't have that at the beginning, and they also do use some of the technologies they learn in my class as they're going through their methods class to get ready for the interactive whiteboard and present lessons. So it loses its ability to be a prereq for some of the other skills that are built upon it. So that's a bit of an issue too. All right, so then this is the third option that we've been looking at for 6 years, just saying. And we keep going back and forth because the students tell us the same thing. We love the technology course, we love learning about technology, we know we need it, but it's just so early and it's not embedded as well. So the last one is, all right, how about this? We break it up into 3 1-credit courses, right? This has been tried, and then okay, first of all, scheduling nightmare, because we tend, and I don't know why we do it at Marist, but we offer every class every semester. So that means that we'd have like 9 sections of Education 150 going through it any one semester. It just doesn't work with the amount of hours that they have to do and how the schedules, it's already a nightmare to schedule classes. So trying to put all these little 1 credits all over the place would be just crazy. Who's going to teach all these courses? And again, it gets into this issue with there's less cohesion, and we're still going to maybe miss some of the prereqs that they can get when they're teaching it and they're learning it at the beginning and with all the other stuff involved. So that's where we are right now at Marist. It's still the same thing, Education 150, in your end of your freshman and beginning of your sophomore year, and they're getting a lot of good material, but it could be better. So if anybody in higher education has tried some other models and they're really working for them, I want to know. So, yeah, or all of them. So that is our challenge right now. Thank you, Dee.
So last but not least, we have Sarah McPherson joining us from ISTE.
I'm working with ISTE now on this new program that just started now. I started working with them in October, but we've had one submission we've gone through, and we have a couple more, so it's really, really brand new. And it's called ISTE's Higher Ed Recognition Program. A little bit about me. I was EdTech faculty and chair at New York Institute of Technology before I retired in 2016, and so now I consult with ISTE. Let's see. So what is the ISTE Higher Education Program? It's a credentialing program. Some of you talked about the trials and tribulations, the fun of CAPE. Okay. Last year, for some reason, and I don't really know all the background, and it's kind of don't ask, don't tell, ISTE withdrew from CAPE. And so the SPA for educational technology for leaders is no longer, well, none of the SPAs is no longer part of the CAPE programs. They don't.
Sarah, can you just say what CAPE is for people who don't know?
CAPE is the Council for Accreditation of Educational Programs. And it's a national, and I served with them for about 5 or 6 years too. It's a national organization that has a role in accrediting college programs for teacher ed. So it's kind of a big deal. And what they had before was every discipline, including educational technology, would send their programs credentials like all the curriculum and student assessments and student performance and that kind of thing into CAPE, and then there were reviewers, and I was a reviewer for the educational technology, and we would go through and make sure that they met all the criteria for CAPE. And ISTE was, shepherding us through, kind of one of the partners, and they decided not to do it anymore. And there's, I'm sure, a lot of reasons, and I'm not going into them, and a few of them I know, and most of them I don't. But anyway, so what happened was they decided to have their own credentialing program. Now, if you're familiar with ISTE and you're corporate, you may know that they have a seal of alignment for products and programs like, I'm not sure that this is one, but like Google's Classroom might be, a seal of alignment. So then they thought, well, they'll just use that model, but take the seal of alignment process and call it seal of recognition for higher ed. So it's based on the ISTE standards, and I have a lot of handouts with the ISTE standards all on one page, but the website is on the bottom. And I encourage you to, when you're looking for a framework for your curriculum, think about ISTE standards and be sure you're aligned. And I've got more if you need it. So it's an opportunity for higher ed programs to prepare their graduates to acquire the skills and build practice to increase the capacity to empower K-12 students. So there's a couple of key words in there that they really want us to always emphasize, and that is build practice, increase capacity, and empower learners, empower the students. So that this isn't about, you see, none of those are about technology. They're all about empowering the learning and building capacity. So it's for pre-service programs, advanced degree graduate programs, advanced graduate certificates, and graduates of ISTE recognized programs. Now, the pre-service programs, if you have one course, because we've talked to schools that have the one course, it's really hard to get all of ISTE standards into one course. Very, very difficult. But if you have a program that has the coursework spread across more courses, and you can find where technology is infused in some of your courses that's not really even a tech course, that could work. And that this is, I said, so brand new that we haven't seen any program step forward and say, oh, we've got it, we do that. So we can't help you too much, but if you'd like to be a pilot, we'd like to work with you. The advanced, yeah, okay, let's go.
I get them, I just get them in there fast.
Yes. With the advanced degree graduate programs, you know, that's more typical where you get a degree in educational technology or instructional technology, or even in instructional design, although design sometimes doesn't get quite as much pedagogy into it as in digital citizenship and things like that, that the standards actually call for. But those graduate programs are ideal, you know, and they're the ones that's coming forward already. And then sometimes there's just, you know, a certificate, or somebody mentioned earlier today a micro-credential or whatever. ISTE standards are written to think about the role of the educator, and again, you see there's not any technology in the standards. They're empowered educator for being a learner, a leader, citizen, and then a learning catalyst, collaborator, designer, facilitator, and analyst. Under each of those standards, and there's the link to it on the slide too, which is in your program now that I've given everybody access, there are highlighted words that are definitions and so on. But anyway, so it's kind of the role of the educator, not the technology, but that's what makes it the world go round, right? Oop. So this is just a slide, why did I do that? That shows that, I clicked on the link, I don't want to click on the link. So, all right, so, but this is a closer look, this is a snapshot of the, you know, screenshot. And one of the things that we want to point out that they're highlighted, you can see like here, possible by technology, and if when you're on the website, you click on that, and it goes to a whole explanation of what that term means and so on, and it's all through all of the standards. So the challenge, that was one of the questions of how to frame our talk. The challenge has to do with, and we've already heard a lot of this, so I'll just go through it, but K-12 is outpacing higher ed and digital learning across the board. Not in every instance, of course, but typically teachers or the schools are better equipped than higher ed for all kinds of reasons that you've heard today and we're aware of. There's a scarcity of vision. Leadership just doesn't understand why it's that important. And I think that may be a money problem, but whatever. There's a disconnect between the pedagogical approach for using technology and what teacher preparation programs teach. And again, I think the one course is an example of that, because it's just the opportunity to integrate is not there as much as it could be. Lack of investment in professional development. I know that there's some faculty in here. How much, ooh, I'm already over time. How much faculty development do you get? Any? About how to use technology? We've talked about it a little bit. Not
Not
much.
for teacher education, for technology in general, yes, but not for teacher education.
Interesting, okay. Because you're already supposed to know it, right? I don't know. But faculty development is very, very scarce, let's say, limited, yes.
And,
and then
we've offered a number of things here in the School of Education, but the timing, I think, because the expectations are so many for people's time, right? The
time is
getting people there has been very
right.
hard.
Yeah, that poster she had about time and space are like really important. All right, so the solutions. One of the things, and I'll just close with this, one of the things is that you can use this program, take the standards and go, you know, by every standard, every indicator, what you're doing in your curriculum, in your classroom, and that meets the standard, and that's all we're looking at. We're not looking at student assignments or performance, we are looking at what assignments you give in the curriculum, but you can self-evaluate your curriculum and see where you are with the standards or where you're lacking and, kind of bone it up. Or you can look at the modifications that need to be made once you do that analysis, and then prepare your curriculum for recognition, ISTE's seal of recognition. Oh, one thing, I have to stop on this slide. This is really, really important. We have two criteria. One is foundational knowledge, and that is, as you see, developing the personal tech skills. And that is not where we want it to stop. We want it to go into the implementing the practice. So what we're really looking for is applied practice. Even in the pre-service programs, evidence that the school, the program, provides opportunities to implement whatever the technology is in practice. Going back to that first thing I said about the idea is to improve practice to empower learners. Okay, thank you. Did you need more?
Yes, I think this side of the room didn't get the standards. So, let's see, where is my... So we have about 10 minutes for discussion, and I'm just going to go ahead and pull up the, I was busily adding some information to the welcome slide deck, because I thought it'd be an easy place to go back to go navigate to. So I was just trying to sort of capture some of the discussion that happened as it happened. So a number of threads came up in this discussion about like how do we sort of reconcile, right, the different conversations that are happening largely between K-12 higher education and the corporate sector. How do we make all of these frameworks and all of these accrediting standards reconcile with the reality of work in schools and colleges and our society? So we want to throw it out to you and hear we don't have to respond to any of these, but any questions can be directed to individuals or to the group. Take it away, Bonnie.
So this is a question and a statement, it could be. So I'm a tech director at K-12. I've done so for 15 years, but prior to that, I was doing the same thing in higher ed. So I can kind of see both sides. One of the things that we try to do in our district with our teachers is strongly encourage them to not just talk to the students about using technology, but for them to model it themselves, and then students will very subtly pick up on it. Does that happen in pre-service? Are the pre-service faculty modeling by using, because I'm not sure that that is happening across the board. So that was one. And then the other piece is, on the flip, in order to help our teachers be successful, when they get their performance review, their principal who's evaluating them needs to be able to feel comfortable having that conversation, and many of our principals don't. They don't feel comfortable saying, you didn't take that, do that integration well, so it doesn't happen. The conversation doesn't happen.
I'm going to answer the first question quickly. Some of our pre-service teachers in the pedagogical courses do a very good job of it, and others just think it should be paper and pencil still, and their knowledge should be poured into the student's head, and that's it. So, I mean, we have, a couple of you mentioned co-teaching. We have math and science teachers that really work well together and use technology and use it in multiple different ways. And a new research product is coming out where it shows when the teachers were modeling and afraid to fail and then took the students to the P12 classroom to practice it, that their level of confidence and use went up like 40%. So we have teachers doing that, but then we have others that are not. So our students are getting an inequitable teaching experience, or learning experience, which is not right. And we need to overcome that at the higher ed area. So, so I appreciate that question, but we're working at it.
Just when you look at the ISTE standards for educators, modeling is is an action verb that many of the standards start with. And that's actually what we're looking for the faculty to be able to do and then train their teachers how to model. So where those opportunities come in the curriculum is, really important. The second part of your question is really interesting, and I don't know that much about the administrators' ISTE standards, but that might be some place to investigate, how to get started with administrators, because that's a really good point.
So they wanted me to be like you and run around into everybody's class and teach ed tech, and that's a no. So, that's a no. So, what we decided to do is modeling is an evolution, right? So we have tenured faculty that have been on campus for 30 years. They're not going to model, but they're going to stay there until they're ready to retire, sometimes 75, 80 years old. So what we have done with our money is find an ed tech integrator that would do that running around that's not on a tenure track. So I think what we have to do is be inventive on how we integrate technology, because the person that loses is the pre-service teacher.
That's right.
Okay, and so, right, so we have to figure out how to move money and make ways until the evolution of our faculty changes over. And then we're changing our interview process. So if you want to become a faculty at our university, the first step is a Skype or Zoom interview.
Yep.
Why am I talking to you on the phone? Right? So I think we have to just look at creative ways to model, but it'll take a little bit of evolution.
I'm not going to start answering this one because I'll never stop.
Maybe I shouldn't do that.
No, go for it.
I think, and you may agree or disagree, but I think teachers of education, schools of education are in a very difficult position because they're trying to support the K-12 system while they're locked into a university system that does not work very well. In terms of, like, let's say, partnering with K-12 schools, there is nothing that's beneficial in terms of the professor in doing that. If anything, it's a time suck, which is very good for K-12 and School of Ed, but it doesn't get you reappointment, tenure, or promotion. Publishing articles that are good for K-12 does not get you reappointment, tenure, or promotion. And so to try to answer some of these questions becomes extremely difficult in the context of higher education if we stay embedded in that context. I know that's a much bigger picture kind of issue, but I feel like we're going to keep having the same kind of conversations about the limitations of partnering with K-12 if we continue to be locked into the university structure.
And you have hit the nail on the head. And I am very grateful to SUNY Cortland. We are looking at that right now because service needs to be considered as important as writing for a very, very scholarly journal. Both of my most recent research projects are in PBS journals that are not considered as scholarly, but they are far more important, as somebody said, if not a journal sitting on a shelf someplace, for the actual practice that's happening in the classroom. And we do a partnership school model, and it does suck the energy out of it, but I have learned more in my field of teaching than anything else, and that's why I push for what I push for in my school and my college. But you're right, we asked for an interactive classroom to be matching our K-12 partner schools. No, we're going to give you 30 computers and line them all up and stick them on tables, and that's not the model anymore. So I agree, and higher ed's got to start paying attention, and we need to have that happen.
Anybody else?
You said that.
This is a part of the shift that I spoke to earlier on, that we probably have to start thinking of going back to the lab school model. And this is something Karen and I have spoken about often, where we're working with the teacher candidates here at the college, but they're at the same time getting some opportunity to practice with students in classrooms, the exact classrooms they're going to be working with. And I don't see that happening right now.
And just for anybody in the audience that doesn't quite know exactly what we're talking about in terms of that, so generally speaking, professors are held to 3 different areas of work: service, like committees we sit on. Oftentimes when we're in schools, that counts as service, which makes no sense because we're not just like going to a meeting, right? We're learning, we're engaging, we're partnering, we're doing research. So service and then teaching, which is obvious, and then scholarship. So these things that we write that then go into the journals that very few people read, as Sean was saying, and a couple people I think were saying. So that's such an important question, and I'm just, again, so excited about today's conversation. This is the 3rd iteration of this event, and the first time we really have a sort of higher ed presence here. And I think that's part of the culture shift in our region and certainly on our campus here. So thank you for engaging in this. We have time for one more question.
Just a little comment. Sure. A lot of programs, when I was at NYT, we had advisory boards from the field, administrators and so on. So that was a teensy little way to bridge the gap, but it's not making a big difference, I know. They don't sit on the tenure review and promotion review.
In that same concept, I know CAPE is an ugly word for higher ed, But one thing that Kate did right is they pushed schools to be professional development schools. And then you have to be with partners, and partners have to help you make decisions on what you're teaching. And we need more of that with it not feeling like it's mandated, but because it's the right thing to do, right? Change and shift, as you said. And can I just make one celebration here right now? I carry another hat in my head, you know, besides mom, wife, grandmother. I'm a great-grandmother, by the way, professor. I'm a school board member. I sit on a school board. And boy, do you learn a lot there. But change is shift. My school district, I'm going to say it, Winning Point Central School District had this year in an elementary building no students opt out of testing. 0 students and full attendance 2 days of the literacy test. And that's a change of shift in the mindset. The same thing we need to see when we talk about technology in the classroom. I can't help but push back on that just a little bit, Chris, from I know, but still, the teachers made it, it's not a test day, it's just another day.
And that, I think, that's a perfect place to end in some ways, because I think that really encapsulates how when we're not having a conversation and engaging dialogue, what ends up happening in the interpretation of what's, right? So much of, anybody that was in the session, right, I shared a little video of me running away from the robot, being like, honestly, technology scares me sometimes, right? Like, we have to be thinking about where data is going, what information is being collected, but we have to also simultaneously be thinking about the amazing possibilities. And if we don't, you said it better than I can. Anyway, thank you everybody for being here today. We have Monica up next, and don't definitely stick around for her and the raffle afterward. Thank you for engaging in this conversation with us today.